So I decided to order myself one of these big beefy 150 watt soldering irons from China, because when I'm using copper sheet like this here, especially the bigger size that it is, it can be quite difficult to get the solder to flow onto this when you're just using a standard soldering iron. Even when you whack it up full, I find it easier if you get the blowtorch, get a bit of heat into the copper sheet first, and then you can flow the solder. But I decided to get one of these because I'm doing this a lot more, and hopefully this will make it a little bit easier, but I'm not overconfident with the construction quality of this. Now I've already gone ahead and cut off the plug on this because I need to fit a UK plug onto it, and the feel of this, the electrical wire here, didn't fill me full of confidence even before I cut the plug off. Basically it feels quite tacky, a little bit like somebody's cleaned this with some acetone, and it's just affected the top layer of the plastic, so it feels a little bit sticky. But it's with the core of this wire, I don't think it's up to the job. 240 volts. Basically we've got a short circuit in here, so there's going to be a lot of amps flowing through this. So let me just zoom in and show you the strands in this wire. I've seen more strands on speaker wire. So here's a close-up look at the wires now that I've stripped them back, and they are extremely thin. Haven't counted the the braids of copper in here, the strands, but there's not that many of them, and they are extremely whispery thin. And if I bring this in here, this is a piece of wire out of a USB cable, designed to have 5 volts running through it, and you can see, yes, it is a little bit thinner. The insulation is a little bit thinner than this, but basically the strands are probably around the same kind of count, and definitely the same kind of diameter on those strands. Really whispery thin. So this is what I'm going to be replacing this with. This is some 2-core 240 volt electrical cable. You can just see the strands are a lot thicker, and basically there's a lot more of them. The insulation is a lot thicker, doesn't feel as soft as this insulation here, because basically what can happen is there's a lot of amps going through this soldering iron. This was just a simple 240 volt, not many amps. You can get away with this kind of wire, although I don't think it'll pass an electrical safety test here in the UK or in Europe. But because there's so much amps going through on this soldering iron, basically this is going to heat up. Both the wires are going to heat up, and eventually the thin insulation here will probably give way, melt, and then they'll come into contact, short, and it'll go pop. So I don't think the soldering iron itself would pass any kind of electrical safety standard here in the UK or in Europe. So I'm going to replace this cable then. So it looks like this is just screwed onto the top here, and this is one of the things you have to be careful of with buying from China. I mean, I love China. I wouldn't have a hobby without being able to buy the cheap electronics etc. from China. But with something like this, you've got to be really careful, because I'm not saying it could kill you, but it would definitely give you a shock, let's put it that way. And you can see how thin these wires are now, so I'm basically going to replace those with something a little bit beefier before I've even plugged it into the mains. And you can see how it's connected here to the soldering iron. It's pretty loose. You can see how thin the strands are, and this wire in particular, there's quite a lot of copper protruding out from the connection here, so as a safety thing, not really up to the job. And I've just noticed now that I've pulled the cable out there, it's got a strain relief screw on the end here, but it basically wasn't doing anything. It wasn't holding the wire down in any way, so it would have been really easy to yank that off there and then create a short from that. So yeah, it's pretty poor. So I've got the wires connected up there, as you can see, and this time when I put it together, I'm going to make sure that that strain relief is tied down tight onto this wire, although it should work a little bit better with this cable as well, because it's much thicker than the original, so hopefully there'll be a lot more for it to grab hold of. So hopefully it should have come up to temperature by now. I will have to make some kind of stand for this when I've got it on the bench, because I've already burnt my little cork sheet here, but seems to be up to temperature. So I've cleaned off a little bit of the copper here on the middle of this sheet, so let's get some heat into there. Feed some solder in. Doesn't seem to be hot enough yet. So maybe it's not hot enough, or maybe it's nowhere near 150 watts. So I thought I'd give it another go after reading online, so I've left it for around 10 minutes. I'm just going to clean this tip up a little bit. See if it makes much of a difference. So let's give this another go. Yeah, it definitely seems to be flowing a lot better now, so it needs around 10 minutes to bring it up to heat, so that's definitely flowing a lot better now. So now it's more like what I expected. You could almost paint the solder on there. But it certainly gets hot around there on the barrel. Glowing red in that one area. But yeah, it's doing the job. So I was just a little bit impatient with this then, not giving it long enough to heat up. So next time I want to use this, I'll plug it in 10 minutes before I want to use it, give it plenty of time to heat up. I'm not going to be using this every day, by no means, so I'm not sure how long it's going to last before, you know, whatever's inside here completely packs up. But certainly changing the cable, if you pick one of these up, I definitely advise you to do that. The cable that came with this is definitely not up to standard on the safety side of things as well. You know, probably could end up being quite dangerous using that cable. So any comments or questions, drop them below, especially if you've got one of these and it went pop while you were using it. But I would certainly recommend changing the cable for something a little bit more substantial from a safety aspect as well. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and hopefully you'll join me on the next one.